Julian adjusted the knot of his silk tie and forced a polite smile for the investor sitting across from him. Just another corporate dinner. Another night feigning genuine interest in empty conversations about the stock market and financial fluctuations. He brought the wine glass to his lips, just as a woman in a black uniform passed by the table, holding a tray firmly. She was young, hair pulled back tight, her posture cautious, almost invisible. Behind her walked a small boy. Julian stopped mid-sip. The kid must have been about 5, maybe 6 years old. He wore a white dress shirt that was too small for him and dress pants that looked borrowed from someone bigger. But it wasn't the clothes that caught Julian's eye. It was the face, the shape of the chin, the slightly arched eyebrow, the straight line of the nose. Julian knew that face by heart. He had seen it in old photographs kept in dusty drawers at the family estate. It was him, at 6 years old. The boy stopped walking. He looked directly at Julian. He didn't look away. He didn't blink. He just stood there, frozen in the middle of the grand dining hall, as if recognizing something deeply familiar. Then he let go of his mother's hand. He walked between the tables, slowly, determined. He stopped right in front of Julian. "Dad?" The word came out quietly, but it sliced through the restaurant's chatter like a sharp blade. The woman abandoned the tray on the nearest table and crossed the room with quick, nervous steps. "Noah, no!" She grabbed his arm and pulled him back, her face flushing crimson with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry, sir. I'm so sorry. He does this sometimes." Julian didn't answer. He couldn't tear his eyes away from the boy. Noah kept staring at him, without fear, without a single doubt. "I swear it won't happen again," the woman continued, her voice trembling. "Please, don't complain to management. I need this job. What is his name?" She stopped in the middle of her sentence. "What? His name?" Julian pointed at the child. "What is he called?" "Noah." The answer came out in a whisper. "Sir, I really apologize. He has a condition. Sometimes he confuses people. He thinks that—" "How old is he?" Silence. The woman gripped the strap of the purse hanging from her shoulder. 5. He'll be 6 in March. Julian did the math mentally. 6 years. March 2020. "Have you worked for me before?" Her face turned an even deeper shade of red. I've worked in many places, sir. For me, at the estate in Greenwich." She lowered her gaze to the floor. "I worked there." The investor at the table cleared his throat, visibly uncomfortable. Other people were starting to stare. Low murmurs spread among the nearby tables. Julian stood up. "Let's talk somewhere else." "Sir, I can't leave the—" That wasn't a request. She took a deep breath, held Noah's hand tighter, and signaled for another server to take her station. Julian walked ahead, crossing the room toward a side corridor that led to the private event rooms. Noah looked back once, as if he wanted to make sure Julian was still there. The hallway was quiet. Julian stopped near a large picture window that overlooked the illuminated garden. He turned to her. "How long did you work in my house?" 2 years. Her voice was steadier now. "From 2018 to 2020. Why did you leave?" "I was fired." "Why?" She looked at Noah, who was distracted watching the garden lights through the glass. "Low productivity. That's what they said." Julian crossed his arms. "You were pregnant." It wasn't a question. She didn't answer, but her shoulders slumped slightly as if the weight of that memory was still there, intact. "I never knew." Julian's voice was lower now, almost defensive. "I know. Why didn't you tell me?" Sarah gave a bitter half-smile. She looked at him for the first time since they entered the hallway. "Tell you what exactly?" "That the cleaning lady got pregnant after a night where the boss drank too much scotch and barely remembered his own name the next day." She shook her head. "You didn't even know who I was." Julian opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out, because she was right. He didn't remember. Not the night. Not her. "I'm not that kind of person," he said, but the phrase sounded weak even to his own ears. "I know." Sarah adjusted her bag on her shoulder. That's why I didn't say anything. I didn't want to be another problem. I didn't want him, she looked at Noah, to be a problem. He isn't a problem. To you, maybe not, but to me, he has always been my responsibility, mine alone. Noah turned around and tugged on the hem of his mother's shirt. Mum, can I have some water? Sarah pulled a small, dented water bottle from her bag and handed it to him. Noah drank slowly, his eyes still fixed on Julian. Why did he call me Dad? Sarah sighed. He sees photos. Sometimes, when I'm on my phone looking for jobs, he sees the news. Your face appears. Businessmen, galas, things like that. She paused. One day he asked who his father was. I showed him a picture of you. I said it was someone important who lived far away. He keeps that in his head. When he sees someone who looks like you, he thinks it's you. But this time, Julian said slowly, he was right. Sarah didn't answer. Julian crouched down until he was at Noah's eye level. The boy stopped drinking and held the bottle with both hands. Hi, Noah. Hi. Do you like playing catch? Noah shook his head. I don't have a ball. Julian felt something tighten in his chest. He stood up and looked at Sarah. I want a DNA test. She went visibly pale. It's not out of distrust, Julian continued. It's because, if he is my son, I need to know, officially. And if he is, her voice came out almost as a challenge. What are you going to do? Send a check every month? Visit him at Christmas? I don't know. Julian ran a hand through his hair. But I won't pretend none of this happened. Sarah looked at Noah, who was now drawing something invisible on the foggy window glass. All right, she said finally. Take the test. Sarah didn't sleep that night. Lying on the thin mattress in the room she shared with Noah, she looked at the cracked ceiling and let the memory return. Not because she wanted to, but because, after 6 years, she had no other choice. December 2019. She was 22 years old and cleaned the mansion in Greenwich 6 days a week. She woke up at 5 in the morning, took 2 buses and a train, arriving before the sun came up. She cleaned 12 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, and a pool that no one used. Julian Vance barely looked at her, not out of malice. He simply didn't see her. To him, Sarah was part of the furniture, just another piece that functioned in silence. Until the night of the holiday party, the cleaning and security staff were invited for a quick dinner in the service area. Nothing elaborate, just a formality. Julian appeared after 11, already stumbling, holding a half-empty bottle of whiskey. He tripped on the stairs leading to the garden. Sarah caught his arm before he fell. Careful, sir. He looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. Do you work here? For 2 years. He laughed, a laugh without humor, without joy. 2 years, and I didn't even know. Sarah helped him up to his room. He insisted he was fine. She was going to leave, but he asked her to stay, just until he fell asleep. He was afraid of getting sick and choking, he said. He was too lonely, he said. She stayed, and it happened. The next day, Julian didn't come down for breakfast, nor the day after. When he finally appeared, he walked past Sarah in the hallway as if nothing had happened, because for him, nothing had happened. 2 weeks later, Sarah discovered she was pregnant. She thought about telling him. She rehearsed the conversation mentally dozens of times while mopping the marble floors, while folding sheets that cost more than her monthly salary. But every time she saw Julian on the phone, talking business, receiving visits from elegant women driving imported cars, her courage evaporated. What was she going to say? That she was the mother of his child, that one night of drunkenness had turned into a whole life. She said nothing. In February, the house manager called Sarah for a meeting. Unsatisfactory performance, slowness in tasks. It would be better to look for another job. Sarah knew what it was. She knew her bump was starting to show, that the nausea was getting in the way of work, that she could no longer crouch down to clean the corners. She took her severance pay and left the same day. She didn't cry. She didn't have time. Noah was born in March 2020, 2 weeks before the pandemic shut everything down. Sarah gave birth alone in a public hospital in Queens, with no partner, no flowers, no father's name on the birth certificate. She held the baby in her arms and made a silent promise he would never lack anything she could give him. The first few years were a silent war. Sarah cleaned houses during the day, catered events at night, hemmed clothes at dawn. She slept 3-4 hours a night, sometimes less. Noah grew. He spoke early, walked early, asked too early about the father he didn't have. Sarah showed him a photo of Julian she had seen in an online article. She told him he lived far away, that he was important, that maybe one day they would meet. Noah guarded that information like someone guarding a sacred secret. On the bad days, when the money ran out before the month did, when Noah asked for something she couldn't buy, Sarah wondered if she had made the right choice, if she shouldn't have told him, if she shouldn't have demanded more. But then she would look at her son, sleeping on the mattress next to her, his face calm, his little fingers clutching the worn blanket, and she knew she had done the best she could, because Noah was hers, only hers. And that had to be enough. Until that night in the restaurant, until the word "Dad" came out of his mouth as if it had always been there, waiting. Sarah turned in bed and looked at Noah sleeping beside her. He breathed slowly, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. She didn't know what lay ahead, but she knew that after that night, nothing would continue as before. The lab was in a discreet building on Lexington Avenue. Julian arrived 15 minutes before the scheduled time. Sarah and Noah were already in the waiting room. The boy was holding a small red plastic car, running it along the edge of the chair. When he saw Julian, he stopped mid-motion. "Hi." "Hi, Noah." Sarah stood up. She wore faded jeans and a simple white blouse. No makeup, hair tied back the same way as always. "The collection is quick," she said, her voice neutral. "Just a cheek swab." "I know." They entered the room together. Noah didn't cry when the nurse rubbed the swab inside his cheek. He just stayed quiet, watching Julian the whole time. When they finished, the nurse smiled. "Results in 5 business days." 5 days. Julian thanked them and left the room. Sarah grabbed her bag and Noah's hand, ready to leave. "Sarah." She stopped. "Have you had lunch?" She hesitated. "We'll eat at home. There's a diner nearby, nothing fancy, just food." Noah tugged his mother's hand. "Mum, I'm hungry." Sarah looked at Julian, then at her son. "Okay." The diner was simple. Wooden booths, laminated menus, the smell of coffee and griddle grease. Julian ordered a steak with fries. Sarah ordered a grilled chicken salad. Noah wanted mac and cheese. While they waited, Julian tried to make conversation. "Do you still work events?" "When they call. But it's not every day." "And Noah? Where does he go to school?" "Public school near our apartment. It's good. The teachers like him." Noah dropped the car on the table and looked at Julian. "Do you have a car?" "I do." "What color?" "Black." "Is it big?" "It is." "Can you take me for a ride one day?" Sarah interrupted. "Noah, don't ask that." "But Mom." "I can," Julian said. "If your mom lets me." Sarah didn't answer. She just cut a piece of the bread that had arrived at the table. The food came. Noah ate half the plate and asked for ice cream for dessert. Julian paid the bill without commenting on the amount. Sarah thanked him quietly, like someone who didn't want to owe anything. In the following days, Julian showed up, not every day, but he appeared. He brought a bag of groceries from the market. Sarah accepted it without asking many questions. There was milk, eggs, bread, fruit. Things she was going to buy anyway. Another afternoon, he brought a brand new soccer ball. Noah broke into a wide smile and ran to the narrow courtyard of the building where they lived. Julian went with him. They kicked the ball back and forth, laughing when it hit the brick wall and bounced back crooked. Sarah watched from the window, arms crossed, face serious. On the 4th day, Julian asked if he could take Noah to the park. "I'm coming too," Sarah replied. "Fine." They went to Central Park. Noah ran to the playground, climbed the slide, shouted for Julian to push the swing. Julian pushed. Once, twice, 10 times, 20. Noah laughed loudly, throwing his head back. Sarah sat on a nearby bench. Julian sat next to her after a while. "He's just like you," she said without looking at him. "I see it. Not just the face. In his ways, too. He's quiet when he doesn't know anyone. But when he trusts, he opens up completely." Julian remained silent for a moment. "Did you always want to be a mother?" Sarah gave a half smile. "No, but when he was born, I couldn't imagine life without him." "Was it hard?" "Every day." She looked at Noah, who was now trying to climb a low tree. "But it was worth it. Every second was worth it." "Why didn't you ask for help?" Sarah finally looked at him. "Because I didn't want him to be treated like a mistake, like a problem, like something that needed to be fixed with money." She looked away. "I wanted him to be just my son." Julian didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. On the 5th day, the email arrived. Julian was in his office when the notification appeared on the screen. He opened the PDF with shaking hands. "Paternity probability, 99.9%. He read the line 3 times. 4. He closed his laptop, grabbed his car keys, drove to the address Sarah had given him in Queens. She opened the door, already knowing. "Did it arrive?" He nodded. Sarah took a deep breath and let him in. Noah was drawing on the floor, colored pencils scattered around him. "Noah!" Sarah called. "Come here." The boy got up and went to them. Julian knelt down to his height. "Noah, do you know what a father is?" "I know. It's who takes care of you." "Yeah." Julian felt his throat tighten. "And I am your father, for real." Noah tilted his head, processing. "Are you going to live here?" "No, but I'm going to come over always. Every day if you want." "And are we going to play catch?" "Whenever you want." Noah gave a small smile. "Okay then." He went back to his drawings as if nothing had changed. But it had. Sarah and Julian looked at each other. Her eyes were watery, but she didn't cry. "And now?" she asked. "Now," Julian said slowly, "we figure out how to make this work." Sarah shook her head. "You don't need to play the hero. Money helps, but it isn't everything." "I know." Julian stood up. "I don't want to just send money. I want to be here." "Why?" "Because the test was positive. Because he called me Dad before any test." Julian looked at Noah on the floor. "And because for the first time in years, I felt like I had something real in my life." Sarah didn't answer, but something in her look changed. An opening, small, but real. The first time Julian picked Noah up from school was on a Thursday. He parked the black sedan in front of the gate and waited. When the bell rang, dozens of kids came running out. Noah was one of the last. He stopped when he saw the car, eyes wide. Julian rolled down the window. "Want a ride?" Noah looked back, looking for his teacher. She waved, already notified by Sarah. He ran to the car and climbed into the back seat, his backpack too big for his small body. "You came to get me?" "I did. Your mom said I could." Noah buckled his seatbelt and stared out the window while Julian drove. He didn't say much, but he was smiling. When they arrived at the apartment, Sarah was in the kitchen making lunch. She looked out the window and saw the two of them getting out of the car. Noah was holding Julian's hand. She dried her hands on a dish towel and opened the door. "How was school?" "Good. The teacher said to draw our family. I drew us." Noah dropped his backpack on the floor and ran to his room. Sarah and Julian stood in the doorway. She crossed her arms. "You don't have to do this every day." "I know, but I want to." She didn't answer. She just went back to the kitchen. Julian followed her in. The apartment was tiny. 2 rooms, cramped kitchen, bathroom with cracked tiles, but it was clean, organized. It smelled of laundry detergent and fresh coffee. "Can I help?" Sarah stopped stirring the sauce on the stove and looked at him. "Help how?" "I don't know." "Chop something. Set the table." She hesitated. Then she pointed to the tomatoes in the sink. "You can dice those." Julian took the knife and started. The first cuts came out uneven. Sarah looked sideways and stifled a laugh. "Have you never cut a tomato in your life?" "I have a chef." "Of course you do." She took the knife from his hand. "Look, like this." She chopped fast, precise, handed the knife back. "Now you." Julian tried again. This time it was better. Noah came back with the drawing. 3 figures, 1 tall, 1 medium, 1 small. Above, written in crooked letters, "My family." Julian held the paper as if it were something valuable. "Can I keep this?" Noah shook his head. "I made it for you." Sarah called them to the table. They ate together. Rice, beans, steak with onions. Noah talked about gym class. Julian asked about his friends. Sarah stayed quiet most of the time, but she was watching. After lunch, Julian helped wash the dishes. Noah dried the plates with a towel and stacked them on the counter. He was slow, but it worked. The following Friday, Julian showed up again. He brought a box with a 500-piece puzzle. Noah's eyes lit up when he opened it. They put it together on the living room floor. Sarah sat on the sofa with a pile of clothes to mend. Every now and then she looked at the two of them crouched on the floor, searching for pieces, laughing when they found the right fit. Julian couldn't remember the last time he had spent a whole hour doing something without checking his phone. On the weekend, he asked if he could take them to the estate in Greenwich. Sarah tensed up. "I don't know if that's a good idea." "Why?" "Because," she searched for the words, "because that place isn't for me. I cleaned that house for 2 years. I know where every bedroom is, every bathroom. I don't want to go back as a guest." "You aren't a guest." Julian held her gaze. "You are the mother of my son." Sarah took a deep breath. "Okay, but just for today." The mansion was empty. Julian had given the staff the weekend off. Noah ran through the garden, screaming with joy at the size of the space. Sarah stood still in the entryway. The memories came too fast. The hallway she mopped every day, the staircase where Julian had tripped that night, the bedroom where it all started. "Sarah," she blinked. Julian was beside her. "Come on, I'm going to make lunch." "You?" "Me." She gave a small smile. "This I need to see." In the kitchen, Julian took out the ingredients he had bought earlier. Pasta, tomato sauce, cheese, nothing complicated. Sarah sat at the island and watched. He cracked 3 eggs wrong before getting the 4th right. She laughed. It was the first time he saw her really laugh. Noah appeared in the doorway, sweaty from running. "Can I help?" "You can." Julian lifted him up and sat him on the counter next to Sarah. "You're going to mix the sauce." Noah took the wooden spoon and stirred slowly, concentrated. Sarah held his waist so he wouldn't fall. When the pasta was ready, they ate at the large table in the dining room. Noah swung his legs in the chair that was too high for him. Julian served the plate, nervous. "Is it good?" Noah tasted it. "It's yummy." Sarah tasted it too. "It is good, but it has too much salt." Julian laughed. "Next time I'll get it right." "Will there be a next time?" He looked at her. "If you guys want." After lunch, Noah asked to see Julian's room. They went up together. The boy was impressed by the size of the bed, the TV on the wall, the view of the garden. "Do you sleep alone here?" "I do." "Are you not scared?" "Sometimes." Julian sat on the edge of the bed. Scared of what? Noah thought. Of the dark. But Mom leaves the hall light on. Your mom is smart. She's the best. Noah climbed onto the bed and lay on the pillow. This bed is really soft. Julian lay down next to him. They stared at the ceiling in silence. "Dad." It was the first time Noah spoke like that, without asking, without hesitating. "Yeah. Are you going to go away?" "Go away how?" "Like, disappear. Like before." Julian turned on his side and looked at his son. "I didn't know you existed. If I had known, I never would have disappeared. And now? Now I know. And I'm not going anywhere." Noah smiled, closed his eyes. In 5 minutes, he was asleep. Julian stayed there watching. The calm face, the light breathing, the small hands clutching the pillow. When he went downstairs, Sarah was on the veranda looking at the garden. He fell asleep. He loved sleeping in new places. She looked at Julian. "Thank you. For today. You don't need to thank me." "I do." Sarah clasped her hands. "You had no obligation to do any of this, but you're doing it. And he's happy. And you?" She thought before answering. "I'm scared, but I'm also relieved. I didn't imagine it would be like this." "How did you imagine it?" "I thought you were going to send money and disappear, that you were going to treat him like an obligation." She looked into his eyes. "But you're here for real. That changes everything." Julian stepped closer. "I don't know how to do this right. I've never been a father. I've never had a real family. But I want to learn." Sarah nodded. "Then we learn together." That night, when they left, Noah had his head on Sarah's shoulder, still sleepy. Julian carried him to the car and put him in the back seat. The boy didn't even wake up. On the way back, Sarah looked out the window. "Do you really want this? This life? Messy, with a kid, routine, responsibility." Julian didn't take his eyes off the road. "I spent years living in silence. Huge house, full bank account, packed schedule. And it was empty." He paused. "Today I spent the afternoon making bad pasta and putting together a puzzle, and it was the best day I've had in years." Sarah didn't answer, but she held his hand for a second before letting go. It was enough. The silver Mercedes parked in front of the mansion on a Tuesday morning. Julian was in the garden with Noah, teaching him how to ride a bike without training wheels. Sarah was in the kitchen making lunch. She had started spending more time there, not as a maid, as part of the routine. When the doorbell rang, Julian frowned. He wasn't expecting anyone. He opened the door and froze. Mother, Mrs. Eleanor Vance, walked in without being invited. High heels, designer bag, dark glasses that were too big. She looked around like someone inspecting enemy territory. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About the situation." She took off her glasses and pointed to the garden, where Noah was pedaling in circles. "About that." Julian closed the door slowly. "That has a name. Noah. Don't come at me with sentimentality." Eleanor walked into the living room and dropped her bag on the sofa. "I heard it from third parties." "Third parties, Julian. My own son doesn't tell me a woman showed up with a child claiming to be my grandson." "I was going to tell you." "When?" "When she had already put her name on the deed to the house." Julian took a deep breath. "It's not like that." "Then explain to me what it is like." Eleanor crossed her arms. "A maid who worked here 6 years ago appears out of nowhere with a boy, and you simply believe her, without questioning, without investigating." "I did a DNA test. He is my son." Eleanor stood in silence for 3 seconds. When she spoke again, her voice was lower, more dangerous. "Do you have any idea what this means? For the company, for the family, for you? It means I have a son. It means you have a liability that could cost millions." She stepped closer. "Child support for life. Inheritance, asset division. She can sue you for abandonment, for emotional distress. She can sell the story to the press. She isn't like that." "You've known her for how long? 3 weeks? A month?" Eleanor gave a dry laugh. "Julian, you are a smart man in business, but with women you've always been naive. She doesn't want money. Everyone wants money, especially those who have never had any." In the kitchen, Sarah heard the voices rising. She stopped chopping vegetables and stood still, trying to understand the words. "Smart maid, set it all up. Test can be faked." Her stomach dropped. Julian raised his voice for the first time. "Mother, enough. It is not enough." Eleanor grabbed her bag and pulled out an envelope. She threw it on the coffee table. "NDA, settlement agreement, $500,000 cash." She signs, takes the money, and disappears. "You can visit the boy whenever you want, but far from here, far from the company, far from the family." "Are you serious?" "I am protecting you. I don't need protection." "Yes, you do. You are blind." Eleanor pointed to the kitchen. "She's in there, making food, taking care of the son, making herself necessary. Pretty soon you marry her, and then she really gets what she wants." Sarah appeared in the kitchen doorway. The two turned at the same time. She had tomato sauce on her apron, her hair held back with an old clip. Her eyes were red but dry. "Sarah," Julian started. "I've heard enough." Eleanor looked her up and down. "Excellent. Then you understand this is best for everyone." Sarah ignored her and spoke directly to Julian. "I never asked for anything. Not money, not a house, not a name. I just let you meet your son. I know, but maybe your mother is right." Sarah took off the apron and threw it on the chair. "Maybe I shouldn't be here." "No." Julian took a step toward her. "Don't do this." "Why not? Because you want to play happy family? Because it's a novelty?" Sarah shook her head. "I know this world, Julian. I cleaned it for years, and people like me don't stay. We just pass through. You aren't people like you. You are the mother of your son." "I know." Sarah went to the back door. "Noah, come here." The boy dropped the bike and ran to her, panting, happy. "Is lunch ready?" "We're leaving." His smile vanished. "But why?" "Because. Get your backpack." Noah looked at Julian, confused. "Dad, weren't we going to build the new car?" Eleanor made a face, hearing the word Dad. Julian opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Sarah grabbed Noah's hand and pulled him outside. The boy looked back, eyes starting to fill with tears. "Mom, I want to stay." "We can't." "But why?" Sarah didn't answer. She just walked faster. Julian stood frozen in the middle of the living room. Eleanor sighed. "You made the right choice." Today he looked at his mother as if seeing her for the first time. "I didn't make any choice." "Exactly. You let her go. You showed you have common sense." Julian looked at the back door, still open. The wind was blowing the curtain. He heard Sarah's car start, heard the engine fade away, and he stayed there, frozen. Eleanor picked up the envelope from the table. "I'll leave this here, in case you change your mind about the agreement." She kissed his cheek. "I just want to protect you, son. You'll understand that one day." She left. The house fell silent. Julian looked at the abandoned bicycle in the garden, at Noah's drawing stuck to the fridge, the apron thrown on the chair. He sat on the sofa and put his head in his hands. He didn't cry, but something inside him broke. In the car, Noah was crying in the back seat. "I want Dad. Mom, I want to go back." Sarah gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. The tears finally fell, but she made no sound. "We can't, baby." "Why?" "Because I don't belong in that world. Because he didn't defend me. Because I was an idiot to believe this could work." But she didn't say any of that. She just drove, and let the mansion disappear in the rearview mirror. Julian went 3 days without sleeping properly. The house was too quiet. The drawing on the fridge was still there. The bike in the garden, too. He tried to work, but couldn't concentrate. Every meeting seemed hollow. Every number on the spreadsheet seemed meaningless. On the night of the 3rd day, he grabbed his phone and typed the message for the 10th time. "Sarah, I'm sorry. Can I come over?" She didn't reply, just like she hadn't replied to the other 9. Julian threw the phone on the couch and looked at the envelope on the table. The contract his mother had left. $500,000. Clean solution, no complications. He picked up the envelope and tore it in half. Then he grabbed his car keys. The apartment was in a neighborhood Julian had never visited before this story began. Narrow streets, old cars parked on the sidewalk, loud music coming from an open window. He walked up the 3 flights of stairs and stopped in front of the door. Took a deep breath, knocked. Silence. Knocked again. "Sarah, I know you're in there. Please." Nothing. He rested his forehead against the door. "I messed up. I know I messed up. I should have defended you. I should have sent my mother away right then. I should have run after you that same second." His voice cracked. "But I was afraid." On the other side, Sarah was leaning against the wall next to the door. Noah was asleep in the bedroom. She had her arms crossed, eyes closed, listening. "Afraid of what?" she asked, without opening the door. "Of ruining everything. Of not knowing how to do this right. Of you realizing I'm not good enough to be his father." Or to, he stopped, to be with you. Sarah opened her eyes. I spent 6 years alone, she said, her voice choked. 6 years raising him, taking care of him, protecting him. And everything was fine. We were happy. Simple, but happy. She wiped a tear that fell. Then you showed up. And for the first time, I let someone in. I let him get attached. I let myself get attached. Julian remained silent, listening. And then your mother shows up and treats me like I'm nothing. Like I set it all up. Like Noah was a threat. Her voice rose a little. And you didn't say anything, Julian. You stood there, still. I know. No, you don't know. Sarah opened the door suddenly. Her eyes were red. You don't know what it is to be treated as inferior your whole life. You don't know what it is to be invisible. You don't know what it is to hear someone talk about you like you're trash, and the person who was supposed to defend you does nothing. Julian's eyes were misty now. You're right. I don't know. He took a step forward but didn't enter. But I know you aren't invisible, not to me and not to Noah. Sarah looked away. He cried for 3 days. He asks about you every hour. He won't eat right. He won't play. She shook her head. And I don't know what to tell him. I don't know how to explain that the father he just met is already gone. I'm not gone. Yes, you are. The second you stayed silent while your mother humiliated me, you were gone. Julian squeezed his eyes shut. 2 tears fell. I'm so sorry. Truly, I was a coward. I let my mother say that because deep down, part of me was still trapped in her world. In what people would think. In what the family would say. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. But in the last 3 days, I realized something. I don't want that world. I want this one. This what? This world here, with you, with Noah, with burnt pasta and puzzles on the floor, with drawings on the fridge and a bicycle in the garden. He gripped the doorframe. I want to wake up every day and pick him up from school. I want to help you in the kitchen. I want to fight with him, to do his homework. I want to be part of this for real. Sarah stood quiet for a long moment. And your mother? Your family? They will never accept it. Then they won't be part of my life. Julian looked straight into her eyes. I choose you guys, not out of obligation, not out of guilt. Because you make me feel alive for the first time in years. Sarah took a deep breath. I can't handle any more disappointment, Julian. Not me, and not him. I know. If you come into our lives again, it has to be to stay. For real. Not until the first fight. Not until it gets hard. Not until your family pressures you. I'm going to stay. How do I know? Julian knelt down in front of her. Sarah's eyes widened. What are you doing? I don't know how to prove I've changed. I don't know how to make you trust again. He held her hand. But I'm going to try every day. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be here. I'm going to defend you, always. Sarah looked at him kneeling in the doorway, tears still rolling down. She pulled her hand back. Get up. He stood up slowly. Sarah wiped her face and looked inside the apartment. Noah was standing in the bedroom doorway, in pajamas, eyes puffy from crying so much. Dad? Julian felt his chest tighten. Hi, Noah. The boy ran and threw himself into his arms. He squeezed tight. He started to sob. I thought you weren't coming back. Julian lifted him off the floor and held him firm. I'll always come back, always. Noah buried his face in his shoulder and didn't let go. Sarah watched the two of them. She took a deep breath, then she took a step to the side. Come in. Julian walked in, still holding Noah. Sarah closed the door and stood with her back to it for a second, gathering strength. When she turned, her eyes were still wet, but there was something different there, an opening, small, but real. I'm going to give you a chance. One. If you disappear again, if you stay silent again, if you let anyone treat me like I'm inferior again. She stopped. It's over forever. It won't happen. It can't happen. Julian nodded. I promise. Noah lifted his head. Are you going to live here now? Julian looked at Sarah. She looked away, not answering. We're going to figure out how to make this work, Julian said. The 3 of us, our way. Noah went back to hugging him. Sarah sat on the sofa and covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders were shaking. Julian put Noah down and knelt in front of her. Sarah. She took her hands off her face. She was crying for real now. I'm so scared. Of what? Of believing. Of getting used to it. And then losing everything again. Julian held her hands. You won't lose anything. I'm not going anywhere. And anyone who tries to separate us... He squeezed her hands. They'll have to go through me. Noah climbed onto the sofa and hugged them both. They stayed like that, the three of them together, crying, but together. And for the first time in days, Sarah felt that maybe, just maybe, this could work. The move happened 3 weeks later. It wasn't sudden. Julian didn't show up with a moving truck demanding they come live with him. It was gradual. A drawer in the bedroom, space in the closet, a toothbrush in the bathroom, Noah's clothes in the wardrobe. Until one day, Sarah looked around the small apartment and realized most of their things were already at the mansion. It doesn't make sense for us to keep going back and forth, Julian said without pressure, but it's your choice. Sarah looked at Noah playing in the garden through the window, looked at the kitchen where they had eaten dinner together the night before, looked at Julian waiting for an answer without anxiety, without demand. Okay, we'll stay. Noah celebrated by running through the whole house shouting, I'm going to live here, until he was out of breath. The first week was strange. Sarah woke up early out of habit, ready to work, but there was no work. There was breakfast waiting. There was Julian asking what she wanted to do that day. She didn't know. She had spent 6 years running, working, surviving. She didn't know what it was like to have time. Slowly, she got used to it. In the second month, Julian suggested something. You said once that you wanted to study. Sarah was washing dishes. She stopped and looked at him. I said that when I was 18. And now? Do you still want to? Julian, I have a son. I have responsibilities. I know. That's why I can help. With Noah, with the routine. You can go to college, if you want. Sarah stood in silence, processing. Study what? Whatever you want, she thought. I always found nutrition interesting, taking care of diet, teaching people to eat better. She gave a small smile. It sounds silly. It doesn't. 2 weeks later, Sarah was enrolled in college. Night classes. Julian picked Noah up from school, helped with homework, made dinner. When she got home, the two were on the couch watching cartoons or building something on the floor. On her first exam, she got an A. She showed it to Julian with shining eyes. It's been so long since I studied, I thought I'd forgotten how. You just didn't have the opportunity. She hugged him. It was quick, but it meant something. Noah changed schools, nothing too extravagant. Julian didn't want to put him in an elite boarding school. They chose a good school, but one that was grounded, where kids were kids, not little CEOs in training. Noah adapted fast. He made friends. He brought classmates over to play. He remained the same polite, humble boy who shared his toys and said thank you after meals. Julian cut ties with part of his family. His mother tried to call a few times. He didn't answer. He sent a clear message. When you are ready to respect my family, we'll talk. Until then, I have nothing to say. Eleanor didn't reply. Some cousins, distant uncles, made comments. Julian ignored them. He made it clear at a corporate dinner when someone asked about the situation. It's not a situation. It's my son. And the woman I chose to have by my side. Anyone who doesn't respect that doesn't need to be part of my life. No one asked again. The relationship between Julian and Sarah grew slowly. There was no formal proposal, no dramatic declaration. It was built over breakfasts, in conversations after Noah fell asleep, in looks that lasted a second too long. One night, after putting Noah to bed, they stayed on the veranda. Are you happy? Julian asked. Sarah thought before answering. I'm learning to be. It's weird not having to worry about the electric bill, not having to choose between buying medicine or food. She looked at him. But what changed the most wasn't the money. It was having someone by my side. I'll always be there. I know, now I know. She took his hand, interlaced their fingers. They stayed like that until the night chill made them go inside. In the 5th month, Julian took them to the shore, a long weekend in the Hamptons. Noah saw the ocean for the first time. He stood still on the sand, eyes wide, not believing the size of it. "Mom, it's huge!" Sarah laughed. "I know." Noah ran into the water. Julian ran after him. Sarah took a picture of the two of them jumping waves, laughing, soaked. That night, after Noah fell asleep exhausted from playing so much, Julian and Sarah walked along the beach. "Thank you," she said. "Why?" "For all this. For not giving up. For choosing us." Julian stopped walking and looked at her. "Do you think I did you a favor?" "No, but I'm the one who has to say thank you. You guys gave me something I never had. Purpose, family, a home." He held her face. "I love you." It was the first time he said it. Sarah felt her eyes fill up. "I love you too." They kissed right there on the sand, with the sound of the waves crashing behind them. When they went back home, Noah asked if they could do that every year. "Every year," Julian promised. And he kept it. 5 years later, Noah was 11 now, taller, lankier, but with the same calm way as always. He was in the living room doing his math homework when Julian got home from work. "Finished?" "Almost. Just the last problem left." Julian sat next to him and looked at the sheet. "That one I know how to do." "Me too. I'm just checking." Julian smiled. His son had inherited his stubbornness. Sarah walked in through the kitchen door, still in her scrubs. She had graduated 6 months ago and now worked at a nutrition clinic that assisted low-income families. She loved the work. She came home tired, but with a light in her eyes. "Dinner is almost ready." Julian stood up and kissed her. "Need help? You can set the table." They ate together like always. Noah talked about his science project. Sarah complained about a difficult patient. Julian talked about the meeting that had gone well. It was ordinary, simple, perfect. After dinner, Noah went to his room. Julian and Sarah stayed at the table. "Remember when we had dinner here for the first time?" she asked. "I remember. You thought the pasta was too salty." "It really was," she laughed. "But you improved." Julian looked around. The house had changed. There were photos on the walls now. Noah as a baby, Noah at the beach, Noah at Sarah's graduation, birthdays, trips, Christmas, small moments that formed a whole life. "I want to do something," Julian said. "What?" "A non-profit. Something to help single mothers, jobs, daycare, professional training. I want them to have the opportunity you didn't have." Sarah sat in silence, processing. "You would do that?" "I already started. I leased the space last week, but I need someone to coordinate the nutrition and health side." He looked at her. "Are you in?" Sarah's eyes welled up. "Julian, you don't need to answer now. Think about it." She held his hand on the table. "I don't need to think. I accept." 6 months later, the center was running, 20 mothers hired, daycare in the same building, training classes at night. Sarah coordinated workshops on healthy eating on a budget. Noah went with her sometimes. He played with the kids, helped organize materials. He watched his mother explaining recipes to women who had the same story as her. "Mom, were you like them?" he asked one day on the way back. "I was. Even worse. And now you're helping." "Now I can help." Noah stayed quiet for a moment. "When I grow up, I want to help too." Sarah looked in the rearview mirror and smiled. "You already help, just by existing." That same year, Julian and Sarah got married. Nothing big. A small ceremony in the garden of the estate. A few friends, Noah as ring bearer, without Julian's family present. But it was complete anyway. When they exchanged rings, Noah clapped louder than anyone. That night, after the guests had left, the three of them sat in the garden looking at the stars. "Dad," Noah said, "do you think things happen for a reason?" Julian thought before answering. "I don't know, but I think we can transform what happens into something good. Like you and Mom, like the three of us." Noah lay his head on Sarah's lap. She stroked his hair. Julian looked at the two of them, at the illuminated house behind them, at the photos on the wall visible through the window, at everything he had built, not with money, but with presence. He had spent 40 years of his life entire, complete on paper, empty inside. Until the day a little boy walked across a dining room, looked at him, and said a single word: "Dad." That word changed everything. Not because it brought responsibility, but because it brought meaning. And Julian learned something that took a lifetime to understand. Family isn't blood. It isn't a last name. It isn't inheritance. It is choice. It is showing up. It is staying. It is defending. It is loving even when it's hard. It is building something bigger than yourself. It is looking at two people and knowing that without them, nothing else matters. Noah fell asleep right there in the garden. Julian carried him inside. Sarah covered her son and kissed his forehead. When they went back to their room, she lay down next to Julian. "Are you happy?" she asked. The same question from years ago. Every day. She smiled and closed her eyes. Julian stayed awake a little longer, listening to her breathing beside him, remembering the sound of Noah laughing in the room next door. And he knew, with a certainty he had never felt before, that he had found what he had always been looking for. It wasn't in bank accounts, it wasn't in contracts, it was there, in that house, in those people, in that life built brick by brick, day after day, choice after choice. And that was more than enough. It was everything.